Don't forget to suck some titties.
Being told, damn, that sucks. Well, hope you have a good one. After you try to apply for a $20,000 loan. Yeah, it's funny how with these loan services, when people need them, and I get it, there's worries about, hey, you have no substantial income coming in. You tell us you need the money for what? Then they quote unquote run a report on you and they're like, hey, actually, you know what? We can't approve you for this. Sorry. I literally last night applied for like 3 different loans. So I basically said, fuck my credit score, right? Meaning when they run your reports, oh, it's going to bring down your credit score 30 points. Hey, guess what? If shit doesn't get paid, it's going to come down a lot more anyway. So who gives a fuck? But yeah. So I got a call today asking for more information. I gave him the information. And she's so gleeful on the phone. Like, I kind of admire the admiration and juice in your system when you work somewhere where, you're just screwing people over day in and day out. Hey, this is a great opportunity for this 30% interest loan. It's a fantastic. And you're like, yeah, just give me the fucking money. I don't, I know I'm getting fucked in this. No one comes out of this on the better end of the stick, all right? She was all like, how are you today? All this stuff, Oh, what are you into? Oh, my God, that's so great to hear. And the second they say, I'm sorry to inform you, we can't approve this loan to you. They're like, and I'm not exactly, yeah. I was like, oh, damn. And she's like, yeah. Well, have a good one. And hung up the phone. Like I was just some piece of meat, Like I was hanging my meat out there for you. So you can just have a buffet of my money for the next 5 years. And you're like, nah. That's how you're starting to get low down the totem pole. When they're like, we don't even want your free money. But yeah, good times. It's nice to be just treated like shit, I'm just kidding. Well, no, the story is true, but I don't feel like I'm being treated like shit. It is what it is. If you're going to apply for a loan, you might as well shoot for the moon. Why settle for $5,000? Why settle for $10,000? You go for 20. Because it's just the satisfaction of, damn, $20K is in my bank account. Forgetting that, hey, you actually have to give that money. That's where people fall down these rabbit holes. But, yeah, good times. Give the credit where the credit is due. Yeah, welcome to episode 338 of the Off the Beat podcast with Clint Nelson. I'm your host, Clint Nelson. Don't forget to like, follow, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell. Most support, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, my breathing. Oh, God. Don't forget to suck some titties. God, if I tried to suck some titties right now, I'd be out of breath, bro. Like, my asthma is so bad. I bet when I was a baby, I was running out of breath getting that boob milk. That's a wild ass thought to think of. But it's true, People are like, I have bad breathing. It's like, have you noticed a correlation when you have bad breathing when you're carrying 30 pounds around your stomach? It's like, no. I'm in a pretty sad state physically. I'm not going to lie to you. But I will never feel as bad as the state you got to be in to be this one YouTuber named, I think, the Ice Cream Man. And these NPC ASMR YouTuber people, life may not be great, but I can promise you, your life ain't that bad. Because I would honestly rather not make the good money they're making doing that. When you go across these live streams and you're scrolling, and you come across a guy with a toilet seat around his neck with fake poop on it, and he's just making jibber jabber NPC noises. And I think the science behind these NPC type of stuff is the fact that it's almost like hypnotizing. There's a hypnotizing aspect to where people are drawn into the fact that I know I am watching absolute garbage of nonsense. And you could probably say the same thing, you're watching this. And for yet, you stay on that screen at trying to diagnose what is wrong with this person. And it's not the shame, because, there were people in the comments just, shaming the guy. Yeah, hey, guys, remember, if you're down bad, you could be this. And that's got to be pretty hard to hear, because he was definitely like a 40-year-old dude doing it. But I'm not here to shame. But whenever you got a SoFi telling you, fuck you, and then you look at these people, you're like, hey, you know what? Life's okay. It'll be all right. I'll just bet against your stock, SoFi. They say the best way, your best information to learn about a company, whether that's trading or investing or whatever, is to actually go to the place and just pay attention to a day in the operation. Pay attention to customers. Pay attention to their attention to detail. Because over time, people, that's what affects, prices. I'm not going to sit here and talk about trading. I talk about way too much for someone who doesn't make any money doing it yet. But I will say, when you get these merger deals, like Hailey Bieber did with Elf Beauty, signed a combo, a merger deal with her cosmetics that raised, it was $1 billion, $500 million, whatever the fuck it was. And it literally raised their stock price 25 to $30 overnight. And all that means is short the next day because it's going down. Everything's overbought just to be sold. But it's pay attention to what is happening. And that will tell you what you need to know. I don't know where the fuck I was going with that. But today's drink. Ghost Grapes Welch's. I'm ready to just throw it all on black. But yeah, whenever this podcast comes out, tonight is game 6 of the Knicks and Pacers. And you know what? I'm going to make a clip of this. And I'm going to clip this out. And I'm going to actually put it out today. Where I think, I do think that, I talked about it last episode. The thing is, when you're going through a weird place in your life, you lose track of time. I lost track of time that it's almost June. And, connect the dots to something. I'm not going to get too into it. But I'm going to make a clip out. And I really do feel like that the NBA is rigged. And it's come a long time. And it's because when I watched Game 5, it was a fair play game. The Knicks deserve to win. I actually do generally feel like the Knicks actually have a more better team in terms of roster. But the Pacers just play better as a team. Their top end talent, I'm taking the Knicks' top end talent over the Pacers. But I think where the difference is the gap between the 6th best player on the Knicks and the 6th best player on the Pacers is where that gap of the Pacers that are overcoming. They're a deeper team. The NBA really is trying hard for the Knicks to be competitive. And I do think it's one of two things. Because they couldn't even try. You know how lopsided a series is between the Thunder and T-Wolves, they couldn't even try to give T-Wolves any advantages. Because any advantages they would, quote unquote, try to give, the T-Wolves would just not take advantage, turn the ball over, make 7 points in a fucking quarter. That type of shit. Like, guys, we can call all the fouls we want. If you're down 30-7 at the end of the first quarter, we can't really do a whole lot about this, you know. We can't make it. So when that series ended short, if they can find ways, especially with being at home in New York, to make this series drag on a little bit, because they don't want too far of a gap between the last game of the conference finals to the finals. Like, they want a pretty steady, like, all right, like a little bit of a break, but people are still engaged in it. And so I do feel like they're going to try, and it's not let the Knicks win, but they're going to officiate to what is favorable to keeping a good product entertaining. Say it like that. Because you say games are rigged and stuff, you know, you're in dark territory. All you have to do is watch the game. And you will see it. Watch how the first 3 games and watch how they're officiating now. And by the way, Knicks won fair and square. I have picked the Knicks to win every game in this, you know, gambling daily stuff that I do sometimes. Don't put crazy odds on it, but just enough to, you know, keep me interested in the game. So I believe the Knicks should have won those games. They were the better team. That's what I thought. And now you see what the officiating is changing. It doesn't help with the history of sports betting. The Jonte Porter situation is old news. But then there's stuff with Terry Rozier, which is still unclear what's going on there. But I do think the worst is to come. I think we are going to have a legitimate NBA or NFL player legitimately in the next 3 years, like, get banned for legitimately betting on games. And I'm not talking about the 11th guy on the Raptors, like Jonte Porter. I'm talking, I don't even want to put names out and, like, have that attached to someone's name, but, like, third best players on playoff teams type of thing. Like, if it was a Pacers, the equivalent of like a Miles Turner. And I'm not saying Miles Turner. He doesn't seem like he would get, but I'm just saying someone of that stature, a really good player on a legitimately good team that matters, that if he gets banned from the league, it really opens eyes to people. And it's not just someone who is not really going to be in the NBA that long. Someone who's probably not going to make as much money as these people getting second and third contracts that has incentive to tip games or jilt into their favor. Like, legitimate players. Because the reason why the Jonte Porter situation, it was easier for him to get caught, is because not many people are sitting there betting on Jonte Porter. So if there is a heavy increase on certain nights of the under for a player like him, and then he also happens to get that under, it's going to raise eyebrows. A lot of people most nights are going to be betting on Miles Turner, Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell, the likes of them. And it's really stupid, like, with baseball. I don't see the point of, now they want to act like they're doing the right thing by letting Pete Rose into the Hall of Fame. It's like he's dead now. Like, you literally waited until a guy died. Then now you want, like, he didn't even get to live to see his legacy be fulfilled. I'm not saying what he did was right or wrong. if I remember correctly, I'll have to look, but I believe he betted on his teams to win more times than not. And himself, you know. He definitely bet at, like, if I was Pete Rose, I'm betting the over, like, on me all the fucking time. It's like, hey, you don't want to give me my contract incentives. I got somewhere else I can make sure these incentives come through. But the MLB banning or unbanning his ability to get in the Hall of Fame, like, the damage is done. Like, either, like, at that point, just stand by and let him be banned the rest of his life. But it's no different than there are literally people in jail. We have legalized gambling across the boards where you can like, if as a league and as a team you can promote gambling and have the flyers for on the outfield walls, have promotions all over the place, then, you know, you're opening that can of worms. And you can't act like you're holier than thou when you're taking money from these gambling companies. And then you ban players for doing the same thing. It's no different than now with, you know, certain drugs being legalized across America. And when weed has been legalized over probably the past 5 to 10 years in a lot of different states and counties and cities across the globe. And there are literally people in prison right now as we speak, serving sentences for the same thing, that now, because we can capitalize it, make it marketable, corporatize it, have shops where they pay taxes on it, all of a sudden, now, they can run these shops and do the same thing that this person in jail was doing. The only reason why it's a crime is because taxes. Like, that's the crazy part. Me and you could do the same thing as a side hustle. You could flip products, buy it off eBay, all that stuff. I could do the same thing. We can make the same amount of money. If I just forget to slip in on my W-2s, I'm getting audited, and for some reason, you're a better person than me. That's weird, right? And I'll even say this, you know. This whole, like, pardoning from the executive branch, specifically the president, has become a joke. And this isn't some political take. This isn't some Trump speak or nothing like that. I don't care about politics. I think it's a waste of time. I think regardless where you lean and all that stuff, there's no way you could look at him pardoning these reality stars, Savannah and whatever the other guy's name, fucking the Chrisleys. The guy with the plastic lips. You know he got the work in prison. It's odd, out of all the people in prison we could pardon, we pardon people who evaded taxes. Like, and maybe because, like, he, you know, Trump, he's a pro of the system. He knows how to avoid this shit. But of all the people, you're worried about people that evaded taxes. Reality stars. And now, and I don't think he was being serious, but just the fact that if Diddy were to go to prison, you would pardon. If you're going to pardon him anyways, why the fuck are we having this whole thing? Well, what's the point of a whole trial if you're just going to pardon people? Pardoning is supposed to be for people that it was proved or there's strong evidence they were wrongly detained off assumptions, misled evidence, and just over time, the time didn't fit the crime based off what the laws may have been at the time, right? And now it's just, hey, I'm going to fucking just get whoever I want out of jail to save fate. And really, if you really look at what he's doing, it's all just to make someone happy. Because right now he's on the verge of making even his own supporters happy. So if you start pardoning people that your fan base has a affinity to, you could all of a sudden have more of that cult following again. And I think that's what this turned into. I don't know which fan base he's trying to get by pardoning Diddy, potentially. But, you know, I beg your pardon, as Umar Johnson would say. We must stay focused. Yeah, my energy is very lacking. I'm not going to lie to you, but I'm a semi-pro baiter. You know, I'm just going to be honest. Like, I'm in a very odd place right now. I have a lot of uncertainty in life right now. And it's not a bad thing. I think you sometimes have to hit rock bottom to actually remind yourself of. You have to hit rock bottom to be grounded. You kind of have to. And I talked about it previously. Sometimes self-sabotage, it's a necessary evil because we self-sabotage for protective reasons. Because maybe we feel like if we continue going down a certain path and get lost in it, we know over time it's going to lose the things that make us individually profound within ourselves, just for acceptance. And then, but the problem is when you start sinking, you're like, damn, you know, it wasn't that bad up there. You know, some type of comfort was nice. And now when shit starts to hit and you're like, man, you know, I might lose my place. I might lose my partner. I might lose it all. And there's a part of that you understand taking certain risk, that this is always a possibility. And then, but it's also potentially a new chapter. Not that you want to lose those things. And I can handle losing the place. I would not want to lose my partner, but you got to understand, you know, when you put yourself and someone that relies on you in very uncomfortable situations, like, it's a possibility. And I don't want that to happen. But I know in order for us to truly take that next step forward, I had to do some stuff that were not sound and pretty irrational. And I only say this out loud on a public podcast that goes on the web for everyone to see. Not because of sympathy or anything like that. It's actually quite the opposite. It's to just be comfortable in why you are doing what you're doing. And understanding that we worry so much. Like, there would be someone, I'm almost 30. People would look at me. And I know what they would think. They would look at me and be like, bro, you were throwing that security you built up for those 8 years plus, working your ass off, just to throw it away in 6 months. And it's not throwing it away, because I know all that stuff I learned over 8 years, I'm applying that now to put it all together to actually make use of that shit. You don't want to work yourself to death your whole life. It's not about chasing easy money. There's no such thing as easy money. There's no such thing legitimately as passive income, because you have to have the money to generate passive income to begin with. You have to put things in place to have passive income. Why do I sound like a a preacher right now. I'm not. The point I'm trying to make is it's a very uncomfortable. And maybe I'm a psychopath here. Sometimes every day when you're going through these tribulations, as Jesus would want you to, you kind of have those, you know how you watch like successful people do these commencement speeches at these universities, or they go on podcasts, or they do these big auditorium. They have these big eclectic interviews that talk about when I was 33, I lost my job, almost lost my wife, almost lost it all. We were living in a car for 3 months. I felt like the biggest loser in the world. Then everything started to work. You know, that type of thing. And then you think about all the people that are out there be like, yeah, I lost my house. I lost my partner. I lost my kids. I lost my will to live, and here I am still 10 years later. So there's always two sides of that coin, right? I'm only saying this out because I think it's okay just to be like, stop attaching age and just like life is not this constant progression. It is not this constant way up. My reference to guide me through this, right, is Dave Ramsey, for example. He was in real estate. He was in like the 80s millionaire, right? Real estate, making a lot of money. Couple bad investments or whatever. He literally went bankrupt. Filed for bankruptcy. Literally lost everything. This is like the 80s. Already married at the time and all that stuff. He went from that to down, and then now, life's great. But it's almost like you kind of have to, not on purpose set back, but you got to be willing to just risk it. And look, it's called risk for a reason, you know? So yeah, I don't know. That's all I gotta say about that. Anyways, the Pacers. I said I was gonna clip about the Pacers and Knicks. I didn't even make a clip for it. God, I'm such an erratic piece of shit. Oh God, I'm fat. Can't focus. I'm fat. Focus. And fat. It's like dodgeball. The 3 rules of dodgeball: dive. Or the 5 things: dive, dodge, dip, dive, and dodge. Or whatever it was. That's my 3 F's. Fat, focus, fat fuck. I think that's 4 F's. I'm just adding F's. Clint, stop talking negative about yourself. It's good to talk negative about yourself, actually. You can't just tell yourself you're great all the time. Because look at me. I got tits. My lower back hurts. Look, all I'm trying to say is I think the worst thing you could do is when you are down bad and you've let yourself go, is to sit here and just attach to an old version of yourself that used to be great. You don't want to, when you get out of shape, you don't want to attach to the best shape person, because every day you're not going to get in that shape tomorrow, in a week, a month. If you allowed 6 months of damage, you got to be willing to at least give yourself that much time to get it back. And that's the problem. People just feel entitled to the best versions of themselves. It's like, I may never be in that shape. I may be a different whole type of body. I may have a marathons runner body 5 years from now. I don't know. Except like distance yourself from what you feel were the best quote unquote versions of yourself, and create a more mature understanding of what matters to you version, if that's even a thing. Look, I'm going down a path where there's two options. I'm either going to be more financially successful. I'm going to be more financially successful 3 years from now than I ever imagined that I ever cared for in my life. Or 7 years from now, I'll be living at my mom's house, my parents love me. They would not let me stay there for 7 years. And I would not do that. I would generally rather be homeless than to do that. That's just, honestly, because, look, if I ever grow up, man, child, whenever I get a house one day, man, this market, I don't even know if it makes sense to buy a house. I want to, when I get older, I kind of want to adopt more of what's more common in, I think they consider us the West, but more like Eastern culture. It's very normal in most cultures around the world to where people, kids, stay until they actually have a reason to branch out from a financial, marriage, kids, where that's when they stem and get their own place and stuff like that. It's more common for, people to live with their parents till they're 27, 28, but it's also a whole different culture. It's a whole different understanding of contribution. America, we're much more, and me included, on the selfish side because it's normal for most kids to get pushed out at 18, 19, 20. And even if they don't directly tell you, there's that pressure. You start feeling like you're a burden. Not me. My parents were pretty cool about it for the most part. But, there's always that all right, when you gonna get the fuck out, we love you, but Jesus, we like you in doses, you're here every day. And only in America is it more common to just flat out throw everyone to the wolves. And there's a lot of good that comes from that. But at the same time, it can also be very harmful 10, 12, 15 years down the road, too. Unity in true family unison. People make fun of the Jews, but one of the beautiful parts of their culture is they're more along the lines of we all share our money. And what you don't realize is when you individualize money and partnerships and marriage, over the long haul, you do lose your net worth, both of you. Because you're not thinking like-minded. You don't have similar goals. You spend more individually. When you work together, yeah, you're spending money together, but at the same time, when you're spending money together, you're more in unison of what your goals are. And you create budgets together. You create a life together. And nowadays, everyone's so worried about getting screwed over that's not even, you would be stupid to do something like that. In most cases, to be honest with you. Combining finances. Most couples would even tell you, most people that have been married for a long time would tell you to not really combine finances to the fullest extent. Combine for household stuff and extra emergency expenses, but to just everything go together, no. Because there's just too much uncertainty. The greatest of people make bad decisions. All it takes is someone going through a depression for 6 months, the whole dynamic of your marriage changes. And you could be together for 18 years. And shit changes. They change. They go through a psychotic episode. Point I'm trying to make here. I don't know what the fuck my point. This whole episode, it doesn't even have a point. I'm not going to lie. No prep for this episode, and it shows. I just, I had time today. I have time every day. What the fuck am I? I had time today. That's what every fucking bum ass with barely no hours at work says. Oh, yeah, I had some time today. It's like, you have time every fucking minute of the day. Shut the fuck up. Like, goddamn, these fucking bums. So, yeah, I had time today. I'm such a fool. Yeah. Yeah, bum. We done. We can done. It's okay to breathe. Breathe, just breathe. Oh, you heard that? All I want is you. So, I came across one of my favorite content creators right now, and it's weird because he's primarily a guy who reviews food. He's not a mukbang guy. I mean, he eats food, but I think there are different mukbangs. There's you're watching people devour, barely breathing while eating a bunch of colors. It's all about the layout. Like, he just goes to like chain restaurants or fast food places, tries new items. Sometimes eats in his car, has a studio at home. He eats it, and his name's King Schratz. He's definitely famous on TikTok, IG, YouTube, all that stuff. One thing, he creates these food videos of him eating, and I used to watch him. And then when he would get to the end of the video and start, talking and just giving he would have like always at the end of the video, he would just have he called it a yap session, where it's just him talking about something on his mind, some more on the real life side, like observations and just his opinions about stuff. So it was like food was used as an avenue to, hey, if you like this, maybe you'll like what I have to say. If you don't, that's cool. You can stop the video at 17 minutes on a 20-minute video, and we're all good. And over time, I'm not going to lie, every time I started talking, I was like, all right, on to the next video. Then he created a second channel where it was more of him. And this was more of the yap sessions at the end. Now he just kind of did it on the second channel. Stuff that wasn't about food. It would just be kind of like stuff you would talk about on a stream. But it would just be videos he makes about more general stuff, about motivation, content creation, blah, blah, blah. And I actually started watching I like this shit more than the food shit. And you know what? What it is when we click on something, we are there, and for whatever our preconceived notion of watching that video is. And if anything that strays from that, we get turned off because we feel like we were lied to in a weird way. It's like, I came to watch you try this ghost pepper sandwich from Burger King. I don't give a fuck about what you think about, men and women dynamics. And that's not that I really didn't want to hear that say, but it's like, that's how we process things. Then I start watching, actually, I like this more than when he eats food. And it's weird because now I like his second channel more than the main one. And the main one's so cool, but now, I like him more for the yap sessions more than, I don't care if he eats another Arby's, Wagyu burger. I don't give a fuck. And that's a good thing because I'm invested in him. And got me to thinking, should I create a second channel of me yapping? No. But no, he created a video about the truth about being content creation that no one tells people about. And there's obviously levels of success. There's him. There's 1,000 feet of crap. Then there's a seahorse. Then there's me. But it really, one of the biggest takeaways I took was this has more to do with people that are hesitant to put anything out there. I mean, he's right in the sense of you just got to post. Because you're not going to get the feedback you want until you actually post. When you try to put out the perfect vid all the time, or you're afraid if you have a take about something that's insensitive or wrong or whatever, you can't live in this world of afraid to put stuff out because you're afraid of how it's perceived, right? He's 100% right about when you hear people like, I just don't know what I want to do. I don't know what I want to talk about, blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, then don't complain about not being a content creator. Like, it is what it is, Because at the end of the day, you watch, he even said something, you could watch, like, literally, you watch his first videos from like 4 or 5 years ago. He sounds different, looks different, everything about him is different. You could go back to my first videos. You could go back to anyone you know's first video. They're literally completely different people. And if they're not, that should worry you. Unless like they have a system where it worked or whatever. But like if someone's style or anything hasn't changed over 4 or 5 years, then that should worry you. But like that's the beauty about this, is you can evolve and change over time. But you wouldn't know what works until you actually put out 50 videos of something that doesn't. So, it's weird how sometimes it's like the universe puts us to attract us to liking certain people or to watching certain things. Because not what the original attraction was, but the deeper intrinsic value that what that person's benefit to you in the long term is going to be a lot more valuable than just, hey, you want to watch me eat this new Sonic chili pups again? I would have never guessed that I would watch him for anything other than that. And yet now his second channel is one of my low-key favorite ones. And it's still on the smaller side for his scale. So that's the cool part, though. Yeah. I will say, these energy drinks, the feeling on it, dude, the energy drinks used to give me this crazy buzz, but I think over time, your body becomes so adapted to it. Like, everything, it's just for comfort. Like, the only thing it makes me feel is just like a nice butt tingle. Just a good old butt tingle. That's a big pause. She make a clap. She make a snap. I'm such a fool. But that's the truth, And, we all just want to do stuff that makes our butt feel a little nice, Nothing wrong with that. God, I'm such a fool. people are talking about there's a fall off of the JRE podcast. And I do think there's some that I got to admit, I haven't watched a full episode or even a decent amount of an episode in quite a while. You know, people used to say like the show has changed over time. Like, of course it's changed, but I still feel like even like a year ago, there was still an entertainment aspect where as long as you feel like the people in it are still enjoying it, you feel it too. And I do feel like there was just a natural distance from it over time for me. Like if there's a certain guest on, I will listen to it. But even when there's guests like I would enjoy listening to, I'm not urgent to get to it. Because it honestly does kind of feel like he doesn't really enjoy being there anymore. Like, and people are saying, you know, he's recently started converting or started going to church and stuff like that. And people are thinking like, you know, maybe he's changing his crazy wild theories about stuff and more grounding and stuff. And I don't know, maybe that takes like you don't want to sit here and just listen to a bunch of opposing ideas all the time, because typically people of God don't. No, but there's been recent interviews, and it was I watched a channel called Podcast Cringe, where it watches typically all these bigger podcasts, and when it's like cringe moments in podcasts, pointed out, stuff like that. He did one with Guy Fieri, and it was just obvious that he just didn't really care to talk to Guy Fieri, which is crazy. Like, most people want to talk to Guy Fieri. Like, I would talk to him for 3 hours just about how literally TGI Fridays is literally like still in existence because of you. Like, you not know the impact you had on TGI Fridays, bro. Like, when you think about when you're young, it's crazy how advertisement and sensory imagery, his hair, his personality and stuff, he attracted to middle-aged people, to younger people. They see the cool hair and stuff like that. And he was a big reason why when I thought of TGI Fridays, I think of Guy Fieri. But he did an interview with him. And just like anytime, it seemed like Guy was trying to do a good portion of the work. He was trying to keep the podcast going. Not necessarily, like, honestly, like, when he's like, we've already been here for 3 hours. Yeah, like, all right, man. Like, I wouldn't want to be here another 2 hours or whatever. You know, if I got stuff to do. And, you know, I'm a married man and stuff. But at the same time, it'd be one thing. But during the 3 hours, there were plenty of instances where he just, like, he didn't really care to, like, go deeper into pause. He didn't really care to go deeper into Guy Fieri's thoughts about something. It seemed very, yeah, whatever, like, close down every type of theory that he would let his friends spew about. And even years ago, he would have just let someone go off the wheels just for entertainment purposes. It seemed like he didn't even want the entertainment value. And Guy, he seemed excited to be there. He was relaxing, had the shades on, smoking cigars and stuff. And it seemed like Joe was just like there because he had to be there. And I think this is where it's getting to a point to maybe when someone's been working for so long, it's hard for someone like him to want to do it less, or because he has to keep up with the expectation. One of the things that make his podcast stand out from everyone else's is just the frequency. Like, there's one thing you can rely on. It's 3 episodes, sometimes a bonus on JRE. Unlimited content for 10, 12, 15 years, however long he's been doing it. And I don't care how many people you have access to talk to, how much money you're getting from it. When you were sitting talking for 3 hours for that long, it's like, and you have a wife, you have kids, like, he has a lot of interests. It's a great privilege, quote unquote, job to have, as people would say, but at the same time, it's really hard to be that mentally engaged. It's really hard to be that really coercively response to what's taking place. Maybe the religion aspect, I don't know. He also has quit drinking, apparently. He's sober. So maybe that kind of takes like the extra loosening. Maybe he kind of, when you're sober, you kind of see things a little bit different, you know? And I don't think that's a terrible thing. But at the same time, I do kind of think that maybe there got to be a change in how he does. Maybe do less episodes. Because I would rather have, I don't know, 2 episodes a week. Like Monday and Thursday, 2 to 3 hour pods. Because it is a lot of guests that when you go through the guest list, it's like, honestly, I think he would be best to have a little bit less. It's not like he's still getting high level guests. That's not what I mean by it, but it seems like a lot of people are there for more promo purposes. Like when you see Amanda Knox on there, a woman whose claim to fame is literally her friend dying and her getting accused of something, which people are so skeptical, where she may or may not have done. She really is like the modern day OJ, just, smiling about it. It's weird how she has made hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars selling books, public appearances, because her friend died. Think about that. If my friend died and I was accused of something, even if I didn't do it and was found innocent and all that stuff, I wouldn't be sitting there going on press tours making millions of dollars profiting off my friend's death. There's something odd about that. I don't know. And someone would go around smiling and stuff. Oh, just because you're free. It's like your friend still got you know what and died. There's a pretty fucked up mentality about it. She's sitting there smiling and stuff, and it's kind of odd. But it just seems there's a lot of filler. And it really is just about getting as much out there as possible. And that's maybe the one thing that still separates him from everyone else, is the frequency, the amount of hours, his polarizing thoughts about things to a lot of people. But, I think, and maybe he can't because he's in a deal with Spotify, but I think they could work something out. Like, there comes a quality issue. And it doesn't mean that he's not entertaining the show, but maybe just like for a month or two, just go like 2 episodes a week, limit the amount of guests, just like really just kind of go through it. That's what I think they should do. But look, he's making hundreds of millions of dollars from it. You don't need my fucking advice on what to do about it. And also, he's got paid people. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, what are you gonna do? It is always odd when there's people online giving the number one people in their fields advice about what they should do to improve their show. That's one of those moments where it's like, all right, man, that's where you need someone by your side. Like, do you know who you're talking about, bro? It's like us telling, the president what they should do about, foreign affairs and stuff like that. Oh, we're economic experts. It's like, okay, so you were making the decisions under this pressure with the access to information I have that you don't have. You're not in these meetings with these other countries talking about these deals. And yet you're telling me what is good for the country when you don't even know what the proper data is. That's just the data we put out there. Not necessarily the right, but whatever. Point I'm trying to make is, I just, Yeah, good times. That is one of those, like, reminding yourself to, like, hey, shut the fuck up. It's like when you, you know what? Look, I haven't watched one of these videos in a long time. It's always like when, I don't know if you guys were a young whippersnapper and you watch some, videos that involved a lady and a man doing boy and girl things. And then there's always a guy in the comments. There's always top and be like, man, just come over here and give you some real dick, Man, I would have fucked her like this. The things I would have done, this man can't compete. And you're like, okay, user 483, go ahead. And that's what it's always got, like, it's always, and that's just gotten it. We always, it's, what is it, negging, where you basically, you shit on other guys to make yourself deem to be better. It's always, it couldn't be me. I would never treat my lady like that. And then she leaves him for you, and then 2 weeks later, you beat the living crap out of her in your Tesla. And you didn't realize Tesla recorded everything. And then that next thing you know, you're Jonathan Majors without a woman by your side going to prison. But once you're in prison, the ladies will find you. It never fails to amaze me when people over the jail cell phone calls know they're being recorded, and they will just flat out say, hey man, don't tell Yobi the cash is under the bed at 283 Rockefeller Drive. Don't tell him. Or they'll use code words like, you realize everything you say is being tracked, and then you're going to trial the next 2 days later, and they're going to use this information against you. God, people. Yeah. I wonder. I don't know if you guys believe in different dimensions, or if you believe that we live in different lives, or what is it called? We live in different matrices, alternate worlds, where it's like we're really living like 20 different lives in different worlds, like our individual self. And I really don't believe in that necessarily. I believe if you believe in that stuff, I think what you're really trying to say is pink cocaine is great. But I also think what you're really trying to say is all those versions are within yourself. And there's just a few things that bring out those different versions. And that could be environment. That can be your mental state at the time, your ability to adapt, your ability to be aggressive or to sit back, your ability to cognitively think, your ability to learn, survive. All those things kind of warp over time to make it to what you think you're trying to do. Or to these different versions of ourselves. Like, I do believe, I'm kind of a believer, I think an individual could have 3 different versions of life depending on whatever they decide over their lifetime. Like, but I don't think everyone's capable of the same stuff, and I don't think everyone is capable. Like for me personally, I'll just say myself. I think I can be one of 3 versions of life. I can be this very come as the world goes, accept my fate, and just kind of go with the wind. Be very loose, not care about a whole lot. Not really have many, just kind of accept things. Then I have a version where when you fall down into these deep depths, you can be very cynical. You don't care. It's quite the opposite. You don't care about a whole lot. You kind of just trap yourself, protect yourself from interaction that may be deemed uncomfortable. You avoid uncomfortable things. You're avoiding discomfort because you're uncomfortable. And then you're just constantly in this state of dissatisfaction. That's a version of life. And I could be a fat bum doing that. Or I could be this rock hard, like jacked up dude, testosterone through the roof, squatting, just all about completing the task, always being productive, and always being deemed to be inspirational. Because I've been all three versions of those. So I've shown myself we are capable. And then you got to hit that point in your life where you got to choose either a way to kind of accept going hard, quote unquote, in one of those versions. Or try to combine the good in all of them. And try to actually, and I think that's where your forming of yourself comes into play. Is when you hit a point where you accept the worst, the lazy, the great, things that make you potentially great, and try to avoid those deep pitfalls. And that's what makes you the most productive version of yourself. Just a thought. And that was a shitty ass episode. Oh God. Whew. But you know what? It's still a win. Because you know what? I got behind the camera. Well, in front, technically. I got in front of the camera. Even when I shouldn't have. And that takes a lot of pride. That takes a lot of vulnerability. When you don't have a lot to offer. When you don't have much to really think about. And you just say, hey, I got something for you guys. So yeah, that's all. So yeah, the Knicks, they lost. You sons of bitches. But there's apparently this is one of my least favorite parts of sports, and just kind of, it even happens at companies too, when people resign or a CEO gets fired or leaves for something else or some controversy happens. And now there's, immediately after the Knicks loss, there's these quote unquote sources and reports coming out how the team was frustrated where Karl Anthony Towns and his lack of defense or his attention to defense or not realizing, hey, not guarding people consistently makes it very hard for us to win games. And my question to them would be, what did you think you were getting? It's been literally one of the biggest knocks on him is, quote unquote, I don't like using this term for professional athletes, but his quote unquote softness. And then people even blaming Mikal Bridges for not getting to the free throw line enough, not drawing contact. Well, I watched the games. Mikal Bridges never, for a second, I think he was avoiding contact. It's hard to really gauge contact when you're not really getting the ball that often. I love Jalen Brunson, but that dude dribbled the fuck out of the ball. And you know what? Honestly, for the team, he kind of has to. They don't really have enough consistent ball handlers. And that's why it actually, even though as great as he is, I do believe that made it a lot easier to defend for the Pacers. There's a reason why they just picked him up 68 feet. Nembhard was a fucking pesty little rat. In a complimentary way. You would have thought, if you just watched the games and the reputation of the coaches, you would have thought the Pacers were coached by Thibodeau and the Knicks were coached by Carlisle. Based off the defensive reputation and intensity. And it goes to show that you can coach defense all you want. You can implement your game plan strategy. I think Thibodeau even knew with this team, he's like, hey, we can't really just be the 2011 Bulls D-Rose MVP where we score 100 points, D-Rose taking 40 shots, and we only allow 89, We don't have the personnel, which you probably actually do. They do have a lot of good defensive personnel outside of your two best players. But what did the Knicks think they were getting? Literally, the coach coached them with the T-Wolves. Saw the whole Jimmy Butler situation. Jimmy Butler basically shitting on Towns, shitting on Wiggins, shitting on the whole approach and mentality of the team. And people are surprised when it's the same result. There is just... And I always kind of was aware of Karl Anthony Towns from afar, but I never really was a fan. I never really got it. I knew he put up stats and points, but not a single time have I watched Karl Anthony Towns and thought he's just dominating. He scores, even like the way he draws contact. Like, it never feels like he's like working through contact. So this whole media world that we live in where we always hindsight, like they had a story planned for when they lose. Like, let's say they would have won that series and then won the NBA Finals. Does that story come out? Probably not. But someone is incentivized, like, hey, if we lose this series, we need a scapegoat. And as many flaws as Karl Anthony Towns, it was pretty obvious there's defensive lapses. He also offensively kept them in the game. Now, he did a lot of stupid fouls, like even during the telecast. Dan Van Gundy, during the whole, he's like, these are just so unnecessarily stupid. Like half the telecast, especially I think like game 4, he was just doing like 5 fouls in the first half. So there's obviously, we know his limitations, we know his flaws. But at the same time, fine, you take Karl Anthony Towns. Replace him with a really good defensive player who gives half the offense. You still lose the game, and you probably lose it a little bit more embarrassingly. Because Karl Anthony Towns was not the problem. He's not my cup of tea. He's not my favorite player by any means, but he certainly wasn't the problem. He was closer to a solution for the Knicks than a problem. And I actually thought Mikal Bridges played really well. I actually felt like he could have been a lesser Pascal Siakam version for the Knicks. Not saying he's as consistent offensively, but there were moments where when he would get the ball in the mid-post and just do a post-up, turn-around jumper, he was pretty efficient with it. And he had moments where he was really good shooting during the series. But I think really just the issue with the Knicks is they just have no consistency shooting-wise. They don't have the confidence to shoot. And that's why in like the game 6, the last of it, and Landry Shamet, when he was in the game, he's probably one of their better shooters, but you can't have Landry Shamet playing 30 minutes. Like, we're trying to win here, That's not a shot towards him, but if you're playing Landry Shamet 30 minutes just to give you some hustle and a few shots that may or may not go in, you're leaving a lot on the table potentially if it doesn't work right. Miles McBride is actually, I never heard of him before this series. Very impressed. I actually thought he should have played more. Like when Brunson wasn't on the court, I would have had McBride run the point. He seemed like a consistent dribbler, someone who could consistently at least initiate a pulse of an offense. And it's weird, like I'm about to say a positive praise for all these Knicks players. Josh Hart. I love Josh Hart. Pause. Offensively, obviously he has limitations shooting-wise, consistently. But his motor, his ability to at least give him some transition opportunities, gave them hope on that end because he was basically one of the only transition players on the damn team. Like, the Pacers had like 7 players ready in transition at all times, and the Knicks had Josh Hart transition at all times. And I think it does come to, we do have to reevaluate maybe some things that sometimes we get caught up in storyline. The whole Villanova trio, Mikal, Jalen, and Josh Hart. Obviously, that's a pretty nice core of the team. Now, should they have ever got rid of Dante? I think what we saw in this series is, even though he didn't really perform as well for Minnesota, I feel like with the role he had with the Knicks, they could have used him. Because he can at least initiate some offense. He has defensive intensity. He could have been a better version of Landry Shamet. And they could have used Landry Shamet in another role to just be strictly an extra shooter they had on the floor. I think that trade of Dante to get Karl-Anthony Towns hurt him more than help him. And I know that's a weird thing. I'm praising Karl-Anthony Towns, but said they shouldn't have traded him. Now there's these trade rumor mills. I love Bill Simmons and Ryan Russillo are the best sports podcasting duo. I mean, ever maybe, but especially in the current day of just media. There are no two better basketball heads of the combination of Bill with the historical aspect, the current aspect of just seeing things for what they are with historical context, being really in tune, having wild-ass trade ideas. And Russillo, who actually day by day studies the tape, like he's studying a March game from the Pacers and Thunder to just get an idea of what we might get. To me, I think he's the best NBA analyst in terms of breaking down the game, really giving real formed opinions without being too heady about it, but he could break it down if need be. And it's a shame that we have to get the best content from not the big networks. And there's this whole inside the NBA situation going on where people are worried that ESPN is going to fuck it up. They're going to change the show and they're going to kind of limit what makes inside the NBA. And I think there's a danger right now because there's already some resistance coming from the crew of Inside the NBA, where they're very, they're letting it known, like, we're not playing by your rules. We're not doing X, Y, and Z. We are not playing these games, ESPN. We're coming and we're doing our thing. And it's like, I get what you're saying, but having that extra resistance going in is just going to create butting heads. Because they can't just be like, ESPN can't be like, oh, we're just going to be, with our tail stuck in between. What was the term? Tail in between the legs or whatever. They're in a dangerous precipice where they have to at least be like, hey, like, we're going to let you do your thing, but, we're going to still have input of how it needs to be done to make it fit. And there's going to be this heavy resistance. I think it could be really bad. Not the show, but the toxicity just going in, the resistance. Anytime you have resistance going into a union situation or relationship together, it typically just doesn't go well. It's inevitable what's potentially going to happen. But, I guess we'll just have to wait and see when it comes to that. Time will tell. But, big city dreams, huh? I've kind kind of steered away from watching. I used to go down this rabbit hole of watching vlogs of NYC stuff, right? I don't really know if I have a desire to live in NYC. I think it's always one of those things where it's always cool from the outside. It's always when you live pretty mundane life or you live somewhere that's very spacey, you seek that action. So you see people, they curate these vlogs and make everything so beautiful. It's basically, vlogs are the highlights of people's days for the most part. Like, I don't want to watch a vlog and someone's in there having a midlife crisis about, what their life has come to, how they're unhappy, in debt, want to hurt themselves, hates their family. I don't really seek out a vlog that's supposed to be positive vibes for that. So you're going to see what the best as it should be. It's a highlight reel. Vlogs are basically highlight reels for someone's life. There's nothing worse than watching a depressed vlog. Like, it was a long time ago, but I watched the vlog, and it was actually off a pretty, relatively decent sized channel. And they typically didn't make these vlogs, but they made this vlog, and the title of it was, "What Has My Life Come To?" And I'm like, maybe this is like some clickbait. You click on it, and they're like, "I can't believe what my life has come to." And then it's just them sitting in the room, talking to the camera, looking down with the overused sweater, no makeup on, not even crying, just legs crossed in their bed, and they're just like, I just haven't felt like myself lately. And I'm like, oh Jesus, I came to brighten up my day, and then here you are saying, hey, fuck that. And it's kind of odd. We have these weird expectations of real people that, because when I come to this location, when I click on your videos, when I come to your channel, when I come to you, if you don't deliver on this one aspect that you have promised me, like, you owe me an apology kind of thing. It's that type of stuff that I think it really just turns people off. We all say we want authenticity, right? And then when people show us it, we're like, shut the fuck up, Like, just go skating. Go to the skating ring at 30 Rock and, get a water dog. But the entitlement that us consumers have come to is that we feel like we only deserve the best from you. We don't want to hear about how your life sucks, because we always assume that as a consumer, our life should be worse than the people we're watching. Like, because you want to, like, if you have a great life, you have a nice house, great kids, a savings account, you trade, you're not going to take time out of your day to go online and watch, someone who's a shoe shiner and is hustling DoorDash and is mentally depressed and just lost their girlfriend and all, everything that could go wrong, go wrong. Like, why would you want to invite that when your life is fine? Maybe as a humbling, you can always use it and be like, sometimes it's, imagine being the person like, sometimes when I look at your life, it makes me appreciate how great mine is. And you're just like, you're welcome. So when I watch your life and it's worse than mine, we got a problem. Get your life up. The entitlement of the consumer has hit like an all-time rigid point where if we are not catered to, loved to, made to feel special, we automatically just feel this rush of, we feel this rush of settlement in the terms of when you feel like you have to settle for stuff as a consumer, you're like, why am I consuming stuff if I'm settling for less? And that's the thing about expectations. We've created things that become so highly produced. People have, no, I won't even say put on a facade, but they always put on their camera face. They always put on their best look. They always make sure they're happy when they're recording. And the second there's something off with them as a consumer, we feel like, what's wrong? This isn't what I signed up for. Forgetting that these are people's YouTube channels. This isn't the Discovery Channel where they have 55 producers and they can edit a million things out of 100 hours of footage of being, wherever. There is this uptick, though, of I would love to live in a tribe. I would love to get like those henna tattoos, to get like carving out my arms, like I'm from Ghana. And, like I went to school with someone who was like 8 years old, and they lived in Ghana, and they moved to America like when they were 4 or 5. And he had a legitimate, like, I don't know if you've ever seen where like it's like a legitimate scar tattoo where they scar your body up in the shape of whatever the shape of the tattoo is legitimate. And I remember like he was like 7 years old, and I'm looking at this kid's arm, and I'm like, I thought this kid was being beaten or some shit. And it was actually part of his specific, when he was there, his tribal's like mark. So I mean, like a tattoo, like it never leaves you. It's always a way to remind you of, where you're rooted at. So I've always wanted, I think it would be cool, us white people, we love going to unnecessarily troubled situations to try to feel like we're a part of the world and feel superior, that we put ourselves through unnecessary hardship that people have to without wanting to do it. And we're like, you know what? I'm going to create problems. I'm going to create unnecessary pain. That is a white, that is kind of, not even white, but that's just kind of European American culture. We always feel the need to travel, to experience things. And it's funny because the people that are experiencing that, they're like, why do you want to experience this? Like, it makes sense for people to come and experience, freedom and opportunity, the cool sightings, cool things you could do here. And they're like, you literally have all that, and you came here to live in this hut with us in the middle of the forest just so you can connect with humanity? Like, what the fuck are we talking about here? They're like, you know what? You really want to do this? How about you just come here? I'll go there, and we just trade citizenships. Since you people want to really do this. That's the thing with these Peace Corps people, these Mormons, these people that go on these missions. It's this sense of like, I understand, it sounds great, and maybe I'm a piece of shit, where it sounds great to go somewhere and experience a part of life to help, kind of be of service. That's all great and all, until people actually go do it, and they come back years later and you ask them, so how was it? And they're like, dang, it's like, was it really life changing? Can't squat in Zimbabwe unless you're Taysom Hill. That's the thing, you just disappear for like 3 or 4 years, and it's just, that's wildly accepted. But if you disappear here for 3 or 4 years, Oh, yeah. Sorry. I'm kind of excited. Woohoo! The market is pumping. Yeah. Good times. Not like good time. Like, trust me, I'm paying attention, but, you know. I'm a good guy. Yeah. You know, this is one of those days I shouldn't have done an episode. Not because anything bad has happened or nothing. I'm just legitimately like, I'm not present. And that's okay. I'm going to do a podcast about how I'm not present. That's what you want to hear. Not being present. Maybe I'm podcast out. Maybe I'm just doing too much out of fun. Beware of what the future holds. Someone said. You know what? Here's what I'm going to do. I wrote down a quote. Let me see if I can find it. Sorry. I know there's a lot of dead hair here. But I'm going to find it. Because I found a really cool... Okay. Here we go. Here's a joke. How do cats dirty talk? They get their paws in your drawers. Well, hopefully not yours, because that'd be kind of nasty. I'm such a fool. I love me a good kitty cat on the gooch. I'm a fool. Yeah, you know. Dirty talking, you know. I haven't done that in a while. Everyone likes a good dirty talker. You know, shit in my mouth, baby. That's absolutely atrocious. You know, I'm just going to say now, this may legitimately be the worst episode I've ever done. I don't know what's wrong with me. I try to prepare, be a good guy. I try to be present. And I'm just, my mind's everywhere else. Maybe it's stress. I was reading some that stress actually, it ages you. I think if you just have an average stress level of the average American male, it takes about like 11 years off your life in total. And that's without any extra issues. If you drink, smoke, do drugs, don't sleep, don't take care of yourself, just the stress alone takes 11 years off your life. And I say that's 11, not too many. Besides, you know, who would want to, you know, I've identified my age of living. I think 57. Which, by the way, rest in peace to John Brinkus of Sports Science for passing. Rest in peace to John Brinkus of Sports Science. They put out a statement, his family, and he lost his battle to depression. Which basically means, you know, he more than likely took his own life, right? Unfortunate. What really irritated me, and this is where I think trolls and stuff, and people who go online, this is where stuff gets out of hand. People in the comment section, it was on YouTube or whatever, there were people in the comment section. Some people said, what a selfish decision. People saying, how dare you take your life for granted to not appreciate what you have, especially with the fame and fortune you have and stuff like that. All these people just talking about how horrible he was for taking his own life when you have a family and stuff like that. And look, like, I get it, you have kids and stuff. People are going to look like you you're putting yourself out of misery, but you're creating more misery for the rest of your life, for the rest of your kid's life, and your partner. At the same time, it's stuff like that I think the pressure of. I'm not going to speak for him, but I think a lot of dudes that do decide to follow through with that, even when they have a family, they have money, they have all that good stuff. Like, all that stuff is just, no matter what he accomplishes or does, he feels unfulfilled. And I'm not someone that's like, this whole like mental health month, like, everyone struggles with it to different extents, but who are we to tell someone what misery that they should live through? That's something we just think that people living longer makes a greater impact. What if he had no more impact left to give and he knew it? He was so checked out. He couldn't be the best father. He couldn't be a great partner. He couldn't be a person to service other people anymore. He lost his purpose for whatever reason. It's a very deep and intricate subject because, look, if I had kids and stuff, I don't think I could ever follow through with it. I would rather live in suffering and all this stuff. But at the same time, it's easier to say it when you don't have that stress, when you don't have that type of love capacity. At that point, everyone can always say, I would never do that. But for whatever reason, and it may be true, where maybe in his mind, the person he was and he felt he couldn't overcome it, his mental health, depression, whatever he's going through, it was causing more of a hindrance to him, which is going to cause a hindrance and effect to his whole family. And I know that's an unpopular opinion. I'm not advocating for someone you should seek all the possible avenues of help, therapy, treatment. Even though I shit on therapy, like, every option is better than going through with that. But I'm also not going to shame someone for deciding to do that either. I'm not like pro-assisted killing yourself or anything like that. But people are going to do what they're going to do. You can't stop. You can't stop unhappiness. And in this world, the more and more you live, you can find happiness in your life and the way you see life. But sometimes the world evolves in ways where your happiness, it will never be fulfilled. And maybe for whatever reason, his purpose, the way society is, and where he is in life, it could not be fulfilled any longer. And it's easy just to say, oh, there's always something you could find happy. Your kids aren't enough. Your wife's not enough. You don't think that was the hardest part? Like, who knows? If he didn't have a wife and kids, he may have done this 15 to 20 years earlier. I don't know the guy like that. But we need to stop sitting here shaming people for doing that when we allow people who live on earth to cause pain and then we force the pain that it causes people, and their job is to heal. We got trauma victims, people that are sexual assault victims. We live in a joke of a society where there are people who side with Diddy. We live in a society where Diddy can be put in jail and Trump can pardon him. And this isn't about Trump, but it's just a point that actions don't always have consequences. So living this moral life that maybe we entailed and we thought, you're not necessarily going to be rewarded for it. And we all live off reward. Like, something I've had to learn is when people do stuff for me, I don't always say thank you. I just assume they know I appreciate it. But sometimes people just need to hear, hey, thank you. Hey, I appreciate you for doing X, Y, and Z. Like, I could do something for someone. I never expect a thank you or stuff like that. Like, I just like, I assume like they appreciate it. But living outside of yourself and understand that different people need different things. So I don't like getting in his mind. I can only identify as being an adult male. I could understand where all I can say is I can understand. And I'm not going to shame a person for putting themselves out of misery. Because someone shouldn't be forced to live a life they don't want to live anymore. To me, it's no different than someone on their literal deathbed and they just say, you know what, just pull the plug. And then you got people that are keeping them alive because it's more beneficial. It's more for them because they're not ready to let go. And it will be hard for them to deal with. And that's selfish. And you got people who try to pull the plug so they could cover that, so they get that life insurance real quick and pretend they're your sister. That is a real story. Not for me. There was a guy who, ex-girlfriend, at the time, ex-wife, I guess, they had kids together. He was in the hospital, basically on his deathbed. He was apparently very close to dying or whatever. Or he was on life support. And his ex-wife went there pretending to be his sister because apparently his sister had authority, you know, if the situation should come alive, of, no pun intended, of where the cut the cord or whatever. She pretended to be his sister. And almost got to where they pulled the plug or whatever. But fortunately, I think like his sister showed up like, no, I'm his sister. You know? But yeah. Look, man, I guess the moral of all that is you know, seek help. It's real out here. And I think people just think depression hits younger people. It hits people of all different type of capacities, all forms of life, all forms of wealth, all forms of greed, all forms of education, all forms of races, all forms of IQ, all forms of everything you could think of. It happens. There's no one exempted from it. It's easy to say, oh, if I had all that money, I would wipe my tears with it. And until you actually have that money, shut the fuck up. Oh, if I had a wife and kid, I would never do that. Well, until you have a wife and kids and you go through what someone's going through, shut the fuck up. Yeah, I don't know. All those and I know a lot of it's trolls, but the fact that people are just trying to stir up someone who contributed positively, created sports science, created the science analytical aspect that is all over sports now, and he was like the integration on television for it. Because if I remember correctly, like he, like the late 2000, like early 2010s, late 2000s, when they started doing like the cool sports science stuff, and then next thing you know, the NBA is all analytical. Football even has analytics. Baseball's always had analytics. But all this stuff of studying the precision of how fast someone throws a ball, you know, 3-cone drills and stuff like that. Like the speed of everything on a deeper level. Just the science and physics of everything. Being presented on ESPN was because of him. And for some reason, no matter what people have contributed to society, no matter what entertainment, no matter what education, no matter what impact someone had on your television childhood, let's just say, even some that minimal, people still feel like they're owed more, which comes back to consumer entitlement. See, it all connects. So yeah. Up 20%. Holy fuck. What the fuck is going on? We had a moment. Yeah. What you gonna do? Good times. Yeah. That's pretty deep and sad. Not gonna lie to you. Made me kind of sad. Yeah. This is why, this is part of podcasting that people don't tell you about, is how you can't explain it. Some days you just don't have it. You're just this. Maybe, you know what? I'll tell you why I don't have it. Because I'm not living enough life engaging outside. And I've noticed when I am the most energetic is when I feel like there's real life stuff that happens that motivates and really brings a rise of excitement to talk about. And when you kind of live this lazy life where everything is on a computer, you're getting information from the same stuff you consume. You don't really go outside to do much. It creates just a cycle of your insinuation, literally everything you talk about is just a reaction to stuff. You're not taking real life experiences that make it where you're so deeply energetic and you have a deep attachment to a crazy opinion or a thought. You're not angry, you're not sad, you're just trying to be rational. And rational is boring as fuck. That's what, being rational, no views. Being irrational, views with hate comments at least, But when everything is just like, some I saw, Karl Anthony Towns report, yeah, let's talk about it. Who gives a fuck about the goddamn Knicks report? No one gives a fuck that Karl Anthony Towns missed defensive assignments. It's always these online YouTubers that are basketball experts, and then you listen to them, and you're like, you're just saying the same shit as everyone else. He didn't switch on defense. You want to know the biggest issue with the NBA is switch defense. The problem is switch defense was implemented, which means we have created a league and a space where you can always shift the blame, no pun intended. No one's actually held responsible most time for just defending an individual that you're guarding. That doesn't mean you can't have help. But the reason why there's so many defensive miscommunications is because no one knows who the fuck they need to guard. And I know defense isn't as simple as just at that level. You can't just one-on-one everybody. But you also can't shift 8 times in a single possession and expect everyone to be on the same page all the time. Of course it's going to be defensive misassignments. Like, if I was a coach, I'd be like, look, here's what we're going to do. We're going to have a 20-game sample. No switch defense. No zone. You pick up a guy and guard him, and you guard that motherfucker. That's the defense. Now, look, you might get burned some games. You might get tired of shit. We may just have to use the whole bench the whole game, and that's fine. But we are playing defense. One-on-one. It creates one accountability. It creates where there's no excuse like that guy blew by you. And then there's places for help defense. Someone drives to the paint. Someone gets off a guy, try to help out, and then they make a pass. That's one thing. But when you are switching because a screen's all fucking game. Of course, that's why there's 25 fucking screens. We're just going to keep screening until we get a defender who we want. Instead of just being like, I'm staying on this motherfucker. And that's the problem. We've complicated sports. We've complicated basketball to where it creates the space where blame, complaining, lack of accountability take place. That's what's happening. At least that's my instigating point of view on this stuff. But who knows? You rat bastard. Okay, you rat bastard. So yeah, good times. Good times, everybody gonna say it. Good times. Yeah. So, yeah, that's all I gotta say about that. But no, when you hear these basketball heads, where they're always talking about, especially when it comes to football, like the guys that watch quote unquote NFL film, and they're just these regular guys that watch, and they talk about, he should have audible to this, and he was supposed to be a little more layered on that throw and stuff. Oh, in his route, he should have been more precise. When he got the 10 yards, he should have cut. And then the guy talking, you're like, no. There's a reason why he had to cut it short. There's a fucking extra defender there. And you got to take real life implications. Not everything is just written in a play. It's not just written. You got to be able to react to real life situations. The turf, the grass, the way things are being officiated, the type of player they're going in. But there's like, oh, he missed a throw because he can't read a too high safety defense. It's like, what the fuck are you talking about? He just flat out overthrew the guy. It has nothing to do with he read the wrong coverage. He just made a bad throw. Sometimes things are not that difficult. People make bad throws. People make bad reads. Sometimes players don't get open. Sometimes players switch on defense. And then they switch the wrong person. You don't know how many times in the Knicks series, going back to the Knicks, how many times you watch, it was always Josh Hart looking at someone, which he probably had a case, But every time, I remember there was this one play where it was Tyrese. He drove to the basket. It was like near the end of Game 6, or like third or fourth quarter. He drove to the basket. He straight line, and I forgot who it was, but they peeled off him and tried to guard someone else, and then he just flat out had it straight to the basket dunk. And Josh Hart's looking around like, what the fuck are we doing? That's a good question. What the fuck are we doing? It's like, it's crazy that someone comes straight to the basket and the defender in front's like, nah, I need to help over this person he might pass to. Who gives a fuck if it might pass to it if no one's guarding the person that actually is driving to the basket? At least have them make the pass. And that's the thing, it's just this, we're going to follow these rules. And then teams are still scoring 130. For some reason, I feel like in the last 10 to 15 years, the best defenses didn't do all this switching and zone defense shit. They were just able to man up most of the time and play defense. I understand, look, in a long NBA season, I understand you probably can't just, hey, you're guarding Victor Wembanyama all night. Hey, you're guarding Anthony Edwards all fucking night. By yourself, no help. I understand there's a realistic aspect to this. I understand the level I don't care how good of a defender you are. An offensive player is moving forward, you're moving backwards. You're already at a disadvantage. That's what makes defense so hard. Is you are, by default, playing at a disadvantage. You're playing backwards. They're moving forward. They have leverage. 2-1. Somehow I tie trading and everything. But the point of the matter is, and then you watch the T-Wolves here, Rudy Gobert. Rudy Gobert is just an scapegoat. Like, Rudy Gobert, he can make 10 straight blocks in a row. He switches up one time on defense, someone gets a basket. Everyone's looking at Rudy Gobert. Everyone on the telecast, Rudy Gobert, see, that's why he can't be on the floor. It's like he just made 10 straight possessions of great defense. He does exactly what he's supposed to do, and then somehow he was supposed to switch 20 feet back, being 7 feet, instead of the actual power forward just getting off the guy in the corner who's not going to make the shot more than 28% of the time and have him help in the middle. And that's to just have a scapegoat. They want to blame Karl Anthony Towns. They want to blame Rudy Gobert. And it doesn't mean they don't make mistakes on defense, but it does mean that if you have someone who is constantly making mistakes on defense, maybe it's not just the individual. Because when I watch the Knicks series, it seems like the whole defense was a mistake a lot of times. But because Karl Anthony Towns was the obvious one, he's this guy playing down low, so when they get an easy basket, they ignore the other 4 players and what they didn't do for that to happen. Yeah, I don't know. It's just this frustration. We just have this blame game mentality about. We just have scapegoats because it makes it easier to just not hold the actual coaching, the actual style accountable. So, yeah. That's all I got to say about that. Sorry, just checking my positive day in trading. Yes, positive day. Can't be mad at it. Yeah. Making more M's. I mean, millipennies. She got a nice penny on that ass. I'm such a fool. I'm such a fool. Oops. You know, look, this has been a piece of shit pod. I'll always be transparent, but you know what? I'll probably just fit this into another episode. I was trying not to do another 2-hour pod, but Jesus, fuck it. All I'll say, I'll talk about, it's weird because I'm in a position right now where basically I have to be successful in this trading thing. Like, I've been doing it for, I'm going to talk about trading, but I'm not going to just talk about the actual thing about, I'm just going to talk about what trading is, what it's starting to remind me of. I realize I am someone where if my back is not against the wall and like pressure isn't applied, I won't take it as serious. I've taken trading serious, like try to get better and stuff. And it's weird how sometimes like things don't clear up visually until you actually things don't actually visually clear up until it has to clear up, because it's here like your livelihood, your well-being, financially, blah blah blah. Like, it's like, all right, you've been doing this for 3.5 months now, and you have not been profitable enough to really be spending all this time doing it. Say you want to do it and not be making money by now. And then it's weird. The second I cleared that up and I accepted it, I got down to work. I planned for today. I wrote down the only stocks I'm looking at, the levels I'm not entering until it's this. And I did that and had a great successful day. I didn't make $400 or not like that. Just $100 some profit. But kind of because I knew starting today, I really needed to like start making money, taking it serious. And it really made me be more calm, accept it, and really kind of make me relax. And focusing on the process, not the result. When you focus on the process, the results will come. I did that today, and I feel just very proud of myself, And sometimes it's important to tell yourself to be proud of yourself for the discipline. I'm not going to overtrade. I'm not going to try to use all my capital to trade, even if opportunity. Only trade when the right, great setup is there. And I did that. Wasn't a lot of trades, but enough trades to where low risk, high reward. I say that because I've noticed it's like you could practice some, like you can say you're going to do X, Y, and Z, but when there's no like pressure and you're comfortable, you got some money to stash away, you got some money to buy you time, you kind of just play around with it. You're in, you got one foot in, but you pull it out the second thing's uncomfortable. You say you do it because you watch all these shows, you're consuming all this information, you're learning and all that. So it's like cool, it's like this honeymoon phase. And then there comes a point where it's like, you know what? I got in this thing to make fucking money. Why the fuck am I not making money? And you break it down, take a step back, and you just enter trades. And you just scale it back, just relax. You trust what you have learned, the tribulations, the fails, the losing, the goddamn fucking losing. And you take that with you, and just like a day like today where it's like not one moment, even when there was some consolidation, indecision, printing, when there was just moments where it wasn't really going one way or the other. In the past, I would have just like gotten out of the trade, afraid to lose money. And I said, you know what? No, I got in at a level where even if I lose, it's not going to be that bad. And things worked in my favor. I got out at good points. I made the right decisions. I wasn't greedy, but I was confident enough to where I was able to stay in stuff. And it ended up going my way. And it's like, you know what? I know what I'm doing at this point. And there comes a point, and I just want to put it out there to people that when you put time into something and you've gone through the bumps, and just trust what you're doing. Trust your capabilities, trust your process, trust that you can do it. Because this is day 1 of the month. And, I have 20 days of trading this month, supposedly, relatively. And I need to be profitable. And there's a very good feeling about that. That I'm one step there, And, I'm excited for tomorrow, but I'm not like too antsy where you worry about where you start looking towards the next day. It's like, you know what? I'm cool with today. I'm going to enjoy my day. When tomorrow comes, prepare like I did today. And that's the thing. I think my biggest issue and where it relates to other people is like when you put so much time into something, you become obsessed with a foreign thing. Coming into trading months and months ago, I've never do a goddamn thing about it. I've heard of trading, but I didn't really understand what it was. And a friend introduced me to it. And I kind of just lightly got into it. And then just I just became obsessive, consuming information about it. I watched this live stream called Trader TV Live. Watching them, professionals and who are dealing with real capital, like watching them trade, it's taught me a lot what to look for. And the whole thing is like sometimes like things take time. You can't put a timeline of how long it'll take you to really get a hang of what you're doing, but it does give you the opportunity to shit, I forgot where I was going with that. The point of the matter is, I'm not telling you got to live, breathe, and sleep when you want to put the time in and get, relatively good at something. Because I'm not good yet. I haven't proven it enough. But, I know I haven't put all that time in just fuck around. Like, I'm serious about this shit. And I know people always say, there's always these assumptions about, everyone knows someone who does trading and then they're bankrupt and they're addicted, they're gambling addicts and stuff like that. And look, there is a gambling aspect that people can become addicted to. And my mentality, just like over the weekend, is I told myself I need to really start having a more professional approach to it. Meaning I need to treat it like it's a real livelihood in order for me to actually become successful if I want to make it a part of my livelihood. And this process has taught me, like, let's be honest, most people get into stuff like trading and the stuff like YouTube and stuff like that because it's quote unquote you're doing something fun and it could be easy money. It can also be easy money you lose too. As easy as money can be to get, it's just as easy to lose. If not more easy. Because it doesn't even feel real. And that's obviously an appeal. Like, it would be cool to make a living or to make a good amount of money. I hate to use the term pressing buttons because it is more than that. But at the end of the day, you make analysis. You try to just maximize profit by getting in and selling. That's all it is at the end of the day when you're doing options trading. The whole point I guess I'm trying to get to this is like these cool jobs, these cool ways to make money. If you want to consistently make it at least a source of income, whatever that may be, or even if you're just using to save and invest in the future, you need to actually have a real legitimate approach to it. Have a game plan. And it took me a little bit while to get that. You always hear it and you think you do, but you don't really understand it. And then when you apply it and see just how immediate the results are. And it's not because you got big results, but it's immediate of how much easier you make it on yourself. Because the problem is when you're just entering trades, sometimes you're down 30%, and now your trades got to work exponentially harder just to break even or to be a little bit profitable. Where if you are just patient, you do the work, you understand the levels, you enter and like pretty immediately you have a good feeling of the trajectory. And you don't have to wait long to start seeing it work in your favor. And that's the whole point of like, if you're going to do something like this, you just need to really have a more legitimate professional approach to it. I'm not a professional, but if you want to be by any means, if you want to just start having a little bit of success, you got to legitimately take it serious because you're going against the people who have done this for years and years. You're going against people with millions of dollars. Those are the people that move the market. I'm sorry, but like your one option worth $80 does not do a goddamn thing to anything. So no, they're not hunting your stop loss. Stop using, whether you're doing trading, whether you're doing whatever job you're doing, stop blaming the thing for why you're not good at it. It's not the thing, it's you. It's the variables you can control. All you can do is control when you get in and when you get out. You can't control what the stock wants to do, what the market wants to do. Whether news comes out, fucks it all up, you can't control that. But you can control how much you want to lose. The whole point I want to make about this is we all want to do the cool things, the one that seem like they lack effort. Because who wouldn't want to make money doing this? It would be amazing. But you also got to be honest with yourself. If it was so easy to make money, how come everybody doesn't make money? It's because you have that thing that all you have to do is just come and expect the stock's going to do this, and that's how you make money. It's more than that. You can get lucky a few times, but you consistently will lose money if you don't have an approach. So, there's my thought of the day. Yeah. I think I'm going to end it there. So that was a waste of time for you guys too, but